So let's talk Tusken Raiders. In standard kit, you get a faceplate and face pieces. I'm a big fan of the hard hat method. I just find it's way easier and I get the look that's closer to a New Hope that way than any other kit. First thing we do, we're going to cut this off right here along this line with a Dremel or a rotary tool. And then we're going to coat it in fabric, or then we attach the faceplate, then the face pieces, then we coat it in fabric. It's really easy. It's not nearly as complicated as it seems. If you make a stormtrooper, he looks like a stormtrooper, who looks like that stormtrooper, who looks like that stormtrooper. Tuskens have personality. They have their own character. I can pick out a Tusken and go, I know what maker that is, and I probably know who's in the bucket. It's an easy project. Let's do this. Mask first. So we cut the edge off so we can have a nice smooth dome. And I just break the edges real quick with a sanding bit. Doesn't really matter what it looks like because it's going to be covered in fabric anyway. I'll probably take the thrift store sticker off. Nah, we'll leave it. Doesn't matter. Next step is to attach the faceplate to the mask. We're going to have to heat it up a little bit. Adjust it here and there, melt the sides a little closer. First step is to find the center, line everything up. Like I said, we're going to have to reheat this whole thing. So I'm just trying to line up where the eyes go and the center of this helmet and drill a hole. So pretty much center. These are just random nuts and bolts. Whenever possible, I'm going to use a washer because we're going to heat this up and I don't want a small bolt getting pulled through. So now whether it's actual center or not doesn't really matter because this is going to be loose and it'll be adjustable anyway. Just slowly work around, heat up the plastic, mold it to your helmet. It's very cold out today, so a little heat's nice, but I'd recommend wearing gloves. Make sure everything's nice and lined up. And I'm going to drill a hole here and put in another bolt. Don't drill through your fingers. Keep the whole thing nice and even. And just hold it flat. And I've got a curve here. Once I put this bolt in, we're going to heat this up and smooth everything over too. There you go. Not too shabby. All right. Now that act is super important. How it goes on, that's about where I want it. All right. Not too shabby. Faceplate attached to hard hat. We're going to do a little prep on the face pieces. I like priming them before I attach them, just so I can see if there's anything that needs any help. So for that, the easiest thing to do is just to glue it to a scrap piece of something and then hit them with primer. And making sure that the bottom is flat. Sometimes with these resin pieces, you can get a concave. Just want to make sure I don't have that on any of these pieces. Also making sure most of the sprue, the extra part sticking out, is gone. It doesn't have to be completely gone, of course. And getting rid of any flashing that may be in here. These pieces like the eyes are cast with a 2-part mold, and that usually leaves just the slightest bit of flashing. At least on a good mold it does. Now if your maker is lazy with their molds, you could have a decent bit of flashing in the slits of the eyes. If that's the case, carefully take the Dremel, cut it out a little bit. The eyes are one of the more noticeable parts, so make sure you take your time with them. We'll get the Dremel for them. I might as well, if I got it out anyway, I'll use it for that too. So just take your time, do a couple plunge cuts, the rest should just pop right out. If you want, you can go in with the needle file and clean the edges up, make it all 100% perfect. I like a little wear and tear on my Tuskens. Not enough that it's like, wow, that guy looks sloppy, but enough that, like, hey, worn. Worn is a good word. So, glue it down, and then we're going to spray these with a little bit of primer. I generally just use sandable primer. I don't do the ×2. I don't do the primer and paint in one. No, I want primer. I want primer. It is one thing. It sticks to stuff and prepares other stuff to stick to it. That's it. I like that. Simple. Kind of like me. All right, I'm gonna prime these. Take them inside because, like I said, it's a little cold out. We'll let them cure, and then we'll come back and attach them to the faceplate. The face pieces have been primed, sanded, and primed again. Now we move on to adhering them to the faceplate. Keep in mind, the nose does not go on until after we have the leather wrapped in. Start with the easy ones. I use hot glue. Just hot gluing them on. Not even trying to get them super secure, because I'm going to come back in afterwards with washers and screws and secure them completely. I suppose now we have to have the E6000 talk, huh? A lot of people use E6000 on their masks. I do not think that's a good idea. The little tube, if you look at it, it says will cause cancer. Not may, will cause cancer. Boots, it's fine. Belt parts, that's fine. On a mask, right there next to your face, on a hot day, that glue reactivates, you're just surrounded by fumes. I do not use or support E6000 on a mask. I think it's a bad idea. If you're gonna use it on a backpack, that's one thing. Like I said, on a mask, no. If you look, we have a 9 o'clock and a 3 o'clock. You want the edge of the slit to start at either 3 or 9. Doesn't matter where it ends. This part right here needs to start at one of those points. Give me a second and I'll show you. And if you look, the slit starts exactly at the 3 o'clock. And at the 9 o'clock. We're gonna have to heat up the mask once it's secured and even the eyes out a little bit. And the spitters. Horns. There's no right or wrong on this one. I don't care what anybody tells you. There's no right or wrong. I try to center them with the eye straight up. And I will probably pull and move these 4 or 5 times. Don't like where this one is. This one's a little too far forward. It's a nice thing about hot glue. Hot melt glue, whatever you want to call it. I think I like that. For the other two, in the back, you just kind of want to make a square. Their placement isn't super critical. They're Tuskens, so they're supposed to look a little off. This one doesn't want to stick. I like that. That looks good. Next step, an entertaining step. This is my light box. We're going to turn it straight towards us. It's relatively bright. It's the brightest light I have available to me. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the mask, we're going to put it up to the light. It's hard to see, but I can see exactly where all of my pieces are. Now this is the important one. This is where the eye is. We getting that? Probably not. It's probably just a huge dark screen because it's trying to white balance. All right. Okay. This is what I use to hold most of my face pieces on. We're going to start by pre-drilling with the smallest drill bit I have. We're going to start with the horns. Since I have them marked, you kind of want to hold everything because you want to hold the horn in place while you drill it. Just want to go as close to 90 as you can, so you're going through the center. Why wouldn't it? So, horn popped off. Not a terrible thing. It's not the end of the world. does not seem to be grabbing in my Jacob's chuck. There we go. Or not. Some days, in every build, things go wrong. It's an inevitability. It's just part of life. It's also not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. To be honest, it's not even that big of a deal. We as people have an amazing ability to just overcome and adapt. And every problem has a solution and is a chance to learn something new. Or at the very least, pay attention for next time. So, popped off, right? Good, because I wasn't even near center. Careful, because you do not want to drill your fingers. Should probably hold it this way. So I'm going to do these one at a time, because it's going to be one of those days. Might as well just start one at a time. I can just barely feel the screw popping through. And yeah, we're just going to pop them all off at this point. Line it up with my middle mark. Carefully. I don't like how that feels. So, we'll come back to this one. I'll explain why in a second. We're just going to drill all 4 holes. Since we have them marked, that's really what matters. That's the placement. Everything else at this point, just lining up with those marks. Drill a hole in the center. Drill a hole in the center. And drill a hole in the center. And glue. Okay. Glasses to help you see. Alright, so we're going to drill a hole dead center. They're nice and easy. For these screws, it's almost the full length of the thread. We take off for the thickness of the washer and the bucket. Still, it's almost the full thickness of the thread anyway. Take your time. Don't drill into the fingers. Make sure you clear off your bit. Same thing for this one. Try to go as close to center as you can. That one. I'll pick that up in a minute. All right, now we can start all these at once. I have my finger right over where this goes, and I'm moving very slowly. I stop as soon as I feel anything, because I don't want to go through my finger. That would be unpleasant. Doesn't matter which one we get, because they're all drilled in the center. Come on. Maybe a little farther. All right. As soon as the horns go on, everything else is much easier because you have somewhere to actually rest it. Right now, it's not as easy. I'm holding the horn, nice and easy. There we go. Look at that. This one, pretty good. There's a gap here. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna cover it with fabric anyway. It just barely started. Screw that one on. I figured I could probably go a little farther. So now we set it down. Start this one a little more. Thread it. Good. This is the first one we did. The placement seemed weird to me. And it cracked here. It's because I went through the wrong one. Completely and totally my fault. But also not the end of the world. Now we're going to do these two. Now again, I normally use these, but I seem to have run out and they're not an essential item, so I'm not going to bother going to a store to get one. I think that's a little too large. I just eyeball this stuff. None of this is too critical. Kim swears by hot glue. She says the hot glue is enough to hold everything in place. I don't quite trust that theory, but you know. I'm not going to argue with her. She was a DL of the Cray clan for a while. Now these I'm going to do one at a time. Like the horns, she's going to say to hell with it, pop it off. I've already marked it so I know where I'm at. It's about the right length even. Just going to drill. I have a feeling that is going to be too far away. Just like the horns, line everything up, slowly drill it in. Not bad. Same thing with this one. Nice and easy. Sorry. Line everything up. That wants to pop off. Speaking of which, eyes are a little different, so we're gonna see if I can get you in a little closer to see what we're doing with that. So here we are. All four horns are in, both blood spitters. I'm gonna drill a hole here and here, and then one here and here. Each one gets a screw, and you gotta be careful because these, they kind of taper in just a bit. So when you drill, you wanna try and keep it as straight as possible. Again, Kim seems to think just hot glue is good enough. I like a little more support just because I've already had pieces snap off on me. The last thing I want is to be in a parade and lose an eye. I mean, it is all fun and games until then. So, very carefully, drill 2 holes. That's what we're gonna do now. Yeah, I'm going to stop for a second and adjust the length of this drill bit. Because if I bring the bit in all the way, come on, so it's the same length, gives me a little more room to put these on. I'm going to do them one at a time. I'm going to drill all the way through. Then I'm going to stop, take the bit out, put the next bit in, put one screw in. That way I know the eye is going to stay in place. If I try to drill the other one, there's a good chance the eye is just going to pop right off. Because it just did. So now, instead of being held on by glue, it's held on by that screw. And I trust that screw a lot more than I do the glue. So, we move on to the next one. Do the exact same thing to the other side. Is that about the same length? That's pretty close. Carefully line everything up. Secure the eye in place with a screw. There we go. So this is fully in place. Looks like we're out a bit, but we can fix that. Nothing a little heat won't fix. Same thing for the other eye. Length is right, close enough. Since I'm left-handed, it's easier for me to go from right to left. I favor going from the outside just slightly in. Instead of hitting it at straight 90, I just kind of barely tilt it towards the eye, inside of the eye a little bit. Because if the screw happens to pop out on the inside, nobody but you will ever notice. Unless you have people looking down your eye holes. There we go. Now, we're a little farther on this side than I'd like to be, so I'm going to hold that in while I drill my pilot hole. Luckily, this is the last one. Until we get to the nose. And the nose is a whole nother game of what the heck. We're going through the leather into a finished piece. Don't like that angle. Not much I can do about it, right? There we go. Not too shabby. Everything still lines up. A little weird dent there. A goofy looking kid, isn't he? This eye needs to come that way a little bit. This needs to come out a touch. I think the whole thing's slightly angled. Now before I cut the eye holes completely out, I want to make sure everything is at the right angle. So I'm going to heat stuff up nice and gently and just slightly push in places and pull in others until everything is exactly lined up how I want. I think I'm okay with it. This eye needs to be adjusted a little bit, and you can really see it here. Once it comes in just a touch, I think we'll be good. So I'm just going to heat this up just a little bit on the inside, and as soon as it's barely pliable, I'm just going to give a little pressure just to straighten it. Alright, let's heat this puppy up. Nice and easy. Take your time. Last thing you want to do is overheat the mask at this point. Almost there. There we go. There's the old one eye. I think this needs to go down just an ever-loving touch. There we go. To be fair, I could fiddle with this thing for days. And have. So it needs to come down just a touch too. All right, I'm okay with that. Now we're gonna paint. Keep in mind when you paint all of these, paint the nose tooth as well. I usually do a single coat of this stuff, the Duplicolor Dark Shadow Gray. It'll give it more of a steel look as opposed to a bright silver. And then I use Tester's Enamel Silver, Metallic Silver. I'll do 3 or 4 very light coats of that as well, just to even everything out, give it a nice bright. And then I will come back with Rub and Buff on just the highlights. And we're ready to wrap. Base coat, and then a couple very light coats of that silver. Make sure you do the nose at the same time. You want everything to match all nice and neat. Our next step is we're going to cut this out, and then we're going to cut out the eyes. So all we're going to do is we're going to cut out right here, right along this edge, maybe give it a slight bit of a return, and then we're going to plunge this little sanding disc in and carefully move around the edge of our lines. I find it's easier to do that after everything is together. To each their own, I suppose. Okay, I don't know how much of that showed up, but we just sanded out all the eye holes. We're going to want to come in with some sandpaper later and smooth everything out, because it's not against your eyes, but still, you know, against your eyes. Not too shabby. Next step is to take this and to drill a hole that this bolt will fit through dead center. Trim off the extra flashing. Now this goes back on to the bucket through this bolt. It's the center one, I just took it out. Come here. We're going to want to put it so that this fold is down. Yeah. Just feed it over. Thread it through because I made it a little too snug, which is better than too loose. All right, I got a bolt right there. Put the washer back on, put the nut back on, tighten everything down. There you go. This can be done with foam. It's easier if you do it with foam, but I don't think it's better. If you have foam on and you turn your head quickly, your bucket doesn't. With this, when you turn your head, it follows your head. You look up, it looks up. The foam's just kind of loose. This is too tight, but once this is on, it's completely freeform. It's all on its own. If I look left, if I look right, up, down, it moves with me. And that's way more important than it being a little more comfortable or easy to put together. Foam also stores in all the heat. This lets everything dissipate out. There's a lot of advantages to it. I make my Tuskens like this because I think it's the best way to do it. So that's what I'm showing you. Also, we have a marker. Penis that will work. These need to be rounded and nipped. Just a little bit. A little too pointy when you put it on. Snips work just fine. Dremel, whatever you got. A knife. But you're just going to want to trim those around a little bit. This is the thinnest leather I have. This is way thicker than I would like, but that's where we are now. We need to we need to wrap the snout in leather. Your best bet's to go to a thrift store and find a purse, a very large, very thin purse, because it's way thinner than this. This is couch leather. Fantastic for bandoliers. Not so much for what we're about to do. But I'm going to trim this off a little bit. Let me get some numbers and I'll get right back. So I was hoping to get this done in one video. That's not going to happen. I was hoping to get it done in 2 videos. Not going to happen either. So we're going to be at 3 videos. This video, which is just the face pieces. The next video is going to be the leather wraps. And then the last video is going to be all of the canvas wraps. So, see you in the next one.